Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you get up to speed on what matters fast. Especially for those of you in public service, we know you're trying to make a real difference in Canadians' lives. And staying informed is, well, it's key.
Absolutely. And today we're digging into a Gov Insider article featuring Ryan Andrusoff, the founder of the Canadian Digital Service. Our goal is really to unpack what's happening with digital government in Canada right now.
Think of this as your quick guide to the big shifts. We want to explore the challenges, sure, but also the opportunities, and really connect that back to the important work you do serving citizens every day. So, where do we kick things off?
Well, the article flags a pretty significant moment. The Ontario Digital Service, ODS, shutting down earlier this year. That definitely made waves. They were seen by many as, real pioneers in government innovation.
Right. ODS felt like a leader. And that didn't happen in isolation, did it? There were federal changes, too. A new Minister of Citizen Services, the dedicated Minister of Digital Government role vanishing, and CDS itself moving under Service Canada. Feels like a shakeup.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's why hearing from Ryan Andrusoff is so timely. Having founded CDS and now with his Let's Think digital platform, he's got a unique perspective on all this AI, open source, digital infrastructure, the works.
Okay, so for someone working inside the public service, what does all this reshuffling actually mean for their day-to-day? How might it impact them?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? These kinds of structural changes, they can ripple outwards. It affects which digital projects get priority, where the funding goes, even how easy it is for different parts of government to, work together digitally.
Yeah.
So keeping tabs on this is pretty crucial if you want to keep delivering those effective services.
Now, the article gets into this a core tension. Andrusov talks about the clash between these new digital ideals and the, let's say, established government way of doing things. Tell us more.
Yeah, he points out that while ideas like user-centric design, basically putting the citizen first, and agile methods are getting more popular, they often bump up against the existing rules of the road. Think long funding cycles, traditional approval chains. These weren't really designed for quick, iterative digital work.
It's like trying to build an app with processes designed for, I don't know, building a highway. And this term agile theater comes up. What's that about?
Agile theater. That's a great phrase. It describes when organizations kind of adopt the language of agile bear, the stand-ups, the boards, but don't fundamentally change the underlying culture. Often it's because sticking to the old, more controlled ways feels, well, less risky.
So you might be saying you're agile, but the decisions and plans are still pretty traditional, step by step.
Exactly. And Andrusov's argument is that for this digital stuff to actually stick and make things better for citizens long term, it needs to go deeper, he says, and this is key. It's not enough to just have good digital apps or user-friendly websites if it's going to be sustainable over time. You have to change the way the bureaucracy works at a much deeper level.
Wow, that's a powerful point. So for our listener, maybe someone who sees these kinds of struggles firsthand, what should they be thinking about?
It really makes you reflect, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where do you see these clashes in your own work?
Yeah.
Have you seen bits of that agile theater? Where are those friction points that make delivering the best service just harder than it needs to be?
The article also mentions how these dedicated digital units were initially seen with a lot of optimism as engines for culture change. What was the original hope?
Yeah, the idea was that these teams would bring in new skills, new ways of working, more flexible, user-focused. They were meant to be sort of catalysts, sparking a wider shift in how government operated.
But Andrusov seems a bit more cautious now, suggesting maybe these units alone aren't enough, especially looking at ODS closing.
That's his reading of it, yeah. The fact that a leading service like ODS closed down might suggest that these teams, by themselves, maybe struggle to drive that really deep system-wide change. There's always going to be this natural tension between the new digital ways and the established bureaucracy.
And that kind of deep change, that cultural shift, it doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No way. It takes time, consistent effort, building relationships,
Yeah.
And a real willingness to adapt those old processes. Andrusov notes many of these digital teams are hitting their 10-year mark. To stay effective, they need to keep showing their value and adapt as leaders and priorities change.
So for government bodies wanting to make lasting change, what's the takeaway? How do they position themselves for the long haul? And maybe more personally for our listener, how can they be part of that lasting change?
Well, it seems to come down to fostering real collaboration and understanding between the digital folks and the more traditional parts of government. It's about showing tangibly how digital makes citizens' lives better. For an individual public servant, it means looking for chances to work across silos, share what you know about digital, and champion that user-centered view in your own work.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The article talks about the unique challenges of doing digital transformation in Canada because of our federal structure. What are the specific hurdles?
It's interesting, isn't it? Our federal system, with responsibilities split up, can make big national digital projects quite tricky. Andrusov calls it a patchwork, which makes these whole-of-government initiatives hard to pull off seamlessly.
Right, like getting different companies with different bosses to all use the same software and processes
Oh,
sounds
yeah,
complex.
exactly. And that makes foundational things, things that could help everyone, like a universal digital ID or common digital credentials, crucial for smooth online services, really challenging to establish nationwide.
But it's not all roadblocks, right? The article mentions some good stuff happening federally with CDS.
Yes, definitely. CDS is smartly focused on building shared tools and platforms, reusable things that different departments, maybe even provinces can use. GC Notify, the government notification tool, is a prime example of that shared infrastructure approach.
And it's not just Ottawa driving innovation. The provinces play a big role too.
A huge role. Androsov calls the provinces natural laboratories. And we are seeing some really exciting work coming out of places like BC and Nova Scotia. The thinking is different regions can experiment, figure out what works for them, and then maybe those successful ideas can be adopted more widely.
Makes sense. Test locally, scale nationally if it works.
Precisely. The article even brings up how different regions work together on open source tools during the pandemic. That's seen as a really positive model for how governments can collaborate effectively. That kind of sharing and working together is just vital.
So for our listener, whether they're federal, provincial, municipal, what's the nudge here regarding collaboration?
It prompts that question. In your role, are there chances to reach out? Connect with people in other departments, other levels of government. Share what you're learning, see what they're doing. Maybe even find ways to team up on digital solutions that ultimately help citizens more.
Okay, and finally, there's this key message from Andrusov. Digital is no longer just about the CIOs. What does he mean by that? Why is that important?
This is so crucial. He's saying technology now weaves through pretty much everything government does. It isn't just the IT folks who need to get digital anymore. Policy analysts, program managers delivering services. Everyone needs some level of digital literacy to be effective.
And he mentions a specific program to help with that, aimed at leaders.
Yeah, a digital executive leadership program with Canada's Institute on Governance. It's designed to get leaders, even non-techie ones, comfortable with concepts like user centricity, agile, design thinking, AI basics. The aim is to equip them to manage digital teams better, talk intelligently with vendors, and be agents for change themselves.
So it's about making leaders across the public service more fluent in digital, whatever their background.
Exactly, and that ties right back to our listener. Whatever your specific job title, having that baseline understanding of digital ways of working, it's becoming essential to making that positive impact on Canadians' lives.
So wrapping up our deep dive, it feels like the big takeaway is that effective, lasting digital government in Canada isn't just about fancy new tech. It's really about changing how government itself operates deep down.
That's it, exactly. It's about evolving those bureaucratic systems. It's about much stronger collaboration across all levels. And it's about making digital literacy a core competency for everyone in public service.
And for you listening in, the public servant doing the work, it means staying aware of these dynamics and actively looking for your own ways to contribute to making things better for the citizens you serve.
Which leaves us with maybe one final thought for you to chew on. Given those tensions, we talked about innovation versus bureaucracy. What's one concrete change, maybe even a small one, that you could champion in your corner of the world to improve digital services for Canadians? It's worth remembering that every single effort contributes to that bigger digital transformation journey.